All right. Hello, hello. Thank you so much for being here. So basically, you guys are all here because you are here because you care about learning to love and be loved in a really good way. And you care about becoming a person that can attract and then hold healthy love, or you care about expanding the relationship or relationships that you are already in. So, whether you are single right now, whether you are in relationship, whether you are married, whether you're divorced, whether you have friendships, whether you have family, we all have relationships in our life, even if they're not romantic. And so, what I'm going to be moving through with you guys today is going to support your relationships in general. We will be focusing on like loving relationships, but this also does apply to any single relationship you have in your life. So, my name is Amy Louise Crash. Firstly, I am a human being having a very human experience. I am a devoted mother. I am a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm a friend. I'm a lover. I am a guide and a mentor for men and women, and I've been supporting people in their growth and evolution all over the world for the past 10 years. So, I've been that person in relationship that's questioned the other person's love for me. I've been married. I've been separated from that marriage. I've experienced abusive and toxic dynamics. I've been toxic myself. I've hurt people and I've been hurt myself. I've lost myself in love. I've silenced my voice in relationships. I've settled in dynamics that weren't actually 100% aligned for me or what I wanted. I've stayed in relationships out of fear. I've lived through so much. I've basically been through all of the things relationally that you could go through. And all of it has been a teacher for me. I've allowed it to change me in really, really beautiful ways to the point that now I am a woman moving as a woman, not a wounded little girl anymore. I often say that we have so many wounded little girls and little boys walking around in adult bodies right now. And what we ideally want is to integrate ourselves into our adult version, the version of us that can be powerfully with the life that we have, for us to be able to hold more in our life, for us to be able to respond to life from our adult version, from a really integrated, embodied place, rather than the wounded little girl or the wounded little boy. So, because of every experience I've had, I've become someone that can actually hold pain now. And that was not an easy journey for me, and it came through a lot of pain. So, pain was my teacher. And I've become this person that can not only hold pain, I can hold a lot of disappointment, I can hold discomfort, I can hold rejection. I no longer let all of these things control me or have me crumble and collapse in my life. And that's why I'm here today. That's why I'm holding this masterclass, is to help you see a new way of relating, to help you build the emotional body within yourself to hold more life, to hold more love, to hold more everything. I basically, like, if somebody asks me what my favorite thing is, I always say I love love. I can't get enough of it. I could talk about it all day long. I always say, like, my favorite scent is love. My favorite color is love. My favorite thing to draw is a love heart. Like, I'm just a person who loves love. And so this masterclass is about looking beyond blame in our lives. It's about looking beyond surface level relationship advice, and it's looking into the deeper patterns that shape the way we love, that shape the way we relate, that shape the way we connect with other people. So in this masterclass, I'll be sharing with you the opposite of what many of us have been taught about love and relating up until now. We've been so conditioned to blame. We've been conditioned to point fingers and make the other person responsible for our own pain during conflict or during disconnection, or even when relationships end. You know, if you think about it, think about what every person does when a relationship ends. They point the finger at the other person and they find every reason why that other person was wrong and all the bad things about that person. But a lot of the time, while one finger is pointing outwards at another person, really it's three fingers pointing back at ourselves. And that doesn't come from a place of shame or a place of blaming ourselves. It comes from a place of radical self-responsibility. Because the truth is, many of the patterns affecting our relationships were formed long before we went into that relationship. So, this is about understanding why we sabotage. It's about understanding why we abandon ourselves in love. It's about understanding why we feel the need to control, why we shut down when things get uncomfortable, why we chase, and why we settle. And most importantly, my intention on this call is to just be here and share with you whatever I feel needs to come through and for you to take away something. Even if it's one thing that you take away that just has you contemplate in your own life, hmm, yeah, where do I do that? And maybe that's already come for you in this short piece that we've spoken into. Because when we truly understand ourselves in these ways, the way we relate with everyone changes for good. And sometimes that doesn't feel good in the beginning because we have to teach people how to be with us again. And if we've been a certain way our whole lives, if we've been people pleasing forever, everyone around us knows us as the people pleaser. So when we begin understanding ourselves and really devoting to our growth and evolution, some people will be really uncomfortable with that. So this isn't an easy journey, but my goodness, if you really devote yourself to this and you have that really deep desire to relate healthily with people, it will change everything in your life because, there's a saying, everything touches everything. It truly does. How we relate with people is how we relate with ourselves, is how we relate with the earth, is how we move through life. It's all connected. So, for a long time, I yearned for love in my life. I was searching and searching to find my person. And as much as it's a beautiful thing to be open to finding our person, our one, the deeper work showed me that creating healthy love is also about getting honest and understanding our patterns, understanding our own wounds, understanding the ways we protect ourselves, understanding our conditioning, because all of that we bring into relationship. I have been a woman who abandoned myself in relationships trying to keep the peace. And this isn't just romantic, like this is many relationships, friendships, family. I have been a woman who's shut down instead of expressing what I truly felt. I've been a woman who confused like emotional intensity with someone for deep connection. I have been someone who overgave, overheld, overfunctioned in relationships. I've been someone who completely lost myself in love and settled for less than what was deeply aligned for me. And through my healing journey, I began to realize that so many of the struggles we experience in relationship they're really not about the other person. They are about the unconscious patterns that reside within us. So over the years, through my work with men and women in all different parts of the world, I've seen how common it is for people to deeply desire healthy love while simultaneously fearing vulnerability, fearing safety, and openness. And that's what real intimacy requires. I always say that we have to be vulnerable to getting hurt to fall in love. And, a lot of people aren't wanting or willing to get hurt. And so if you're not willing to be open to hurt, you're truly not open to love because they live together. They are married together. This is life. With love comes pain. And so we've got to be open to both to actually open ourselves up to receiving the kind of love we want. If we're constantly protecting ourselves from getting hurt, we're protecting ourselves from love too. I've seen people who crave connection but push away love when it's actually safe. Like safe love comes along into their life and then they push it away because it's a very unfamiliar feeling for them, and they've never experienced it before, and it doesn't feel safe because what feels safe to them is chaos. What feels safe to them is pain. I've seen people who settle in marriages and dynamics because they have lost a sense of self-worth and don't yet feel worthy of love or worthy of more. I've seen people who chase emotionally available partners because that is all they have seen modeled to them growing up. I've seen people who confuse chaos for chemistry because peace, this is what I was saying before, peace feels so unfamiliar to the nervous system. I've seen people attract healthy love and then lose it as fast as it came because they haven't yet built the emotional body and nervous system capacity to hold healthy love. I've seen people never fully show up as the truth of themselves, never been fully expressed, and stay that way for a lifetime because they never chose to build internal safety in their own body. I've seen couples stay in relationships for the kids and live a very miserable, disconnected, unhappy life. I've also worked with clients who have been the children in those families of the parents who have stayed together for the kids. Those children have now grown up into adults, and I've coached some of these people, and these young adults share how they knew their parents were so unhappy because energy doesn't lie. So if a couple is living together but there's a very big disconnect and an unhappiness and they really don't want to be together, that is deeply felt by children because children are pure and they are deeply connected to the divine, and so they will feel energy more than a lot of people. And so it's created a lot of sadness for these children that have grown into young adults because they felt it all when the parents were doing what they thought was the right thing for the kids. But in actual fact, the right things for the kids is happy parents. So this is why this work matters so deeply to me, because relationships aren't just about finding the one or falling in love and living happily ever after. They are the ultimate playground of growth. They are mirrors, they are invitations, they are opportunities to become conscious of what lives inside of us. And when we begin to understand ourselves on a deeper level, everything about how we love, how we relate, how we exchange, how we receive begins to change. So the nervous system is where so much of this begins. Most people think often that they have a relationship problem, or, I used to say this all the time, like, I think there's something wrong with me. Why does like no one choose me? But it's not about that. It's often because what people have is a nervous system that's wired for survival. Our childhood experiences, the love that we witnessed growing up. This is what I was just sharing before. The way we saw conflict being handled in our family, how emotionally available our parents were, abandonment, criticism, inconsistency, emotional neglect, chaos, or feeling unsafe. All of it shapes the way our nervous system learned to relate. And without even realizing it, we carry those patterns into our adult relationships. So this is why someone can deeply desire healthy love and at the same time sabotage it when it arrives. Because if your body was conditioned for survival, chaos and being treated poorly may feel more familiar and comfortable on some degree than peace. Intensity may feel like chemistry, and then safety for that person can actually feel unsafe. Emotional unavailability may feel more attractive than consistency. I definitely had this in my younger years growing up. The chase for me, it was like gave me a thrill, because when a safe person came along, it scared the hell out of me. This is where so many relationship patterns are actually born. So if we look at some of the patterns that show up for us, hyper independence, this is a really big one for women. Hyper independence is basically an independent woman like on steroids, basically. So it's like a woman who can do everything herself. She doesn't need a man to help her. She doesn't need help in any way, shape, or form. She can do everything herself. And that's her way of keeping herself safe. But the sad thing is, when we are operating from hyper independence, there is no space for a man to step in and be a man in our life because we are controlling everything in our lives ourselves. We don't need help. Control is another one. And everyone that I'm sharing with you right now, they're all ones that I have had at some point in my life. Control is something that I'm still moving through and working with and noticing where it shows up in my life. And it's not just like controlling another person. It might not even be that. It might be trying to control the outcome of a situation, trying to control where that relationship goes. And, I've noticed that in my own self. Fear of vulnerability, not being vulnerable because you fear, like, if you're vulnerable, are they going to leave? Like, if they hear the thing that's so vulnerable for you to share, will they leave? And I actually had a beautiful experience, I don't know, a couple of months ago now, where I was the most vulnerable I've ever been with a man. And I shared like some really big fears for me. And in that moment, as I shared it because I know that that's my edge. But at the same time as sharing it, I was like, he's probably never gonna like want to see me again because it was that really deep-seated fear. Shutting down during conflict. This is a huge one. And, I saw this growing up in many different places, many different people. Shutting down in conflict can be somebody says something to you, you get offended or you feel hurt. So you react and you say something back, and then you shut down and you give them the silent treatment. And you like basically it's a form of punishment because you want them to know that you're mad with them. This is shutting down. It's also punishment. It's also um, it's so many things, and it's very toxic, and a lot of people do this, and it's really is one big one to change. Chasing love is another one, constantly feeling that need to chase love, choosing unavailable partners, abandoning ourselves. All of us do this to some degree, abandon ourselves in many different ways. It might be saying yes and overcommitting when really your body was a no. That's abandoning yourself. And, when you do that so many times over, it compounds and it does affect your self-worth. Pushing away safe love. So eventually, a safe person arrives in your life and it's everything that you wanted, but you've never had a safe person. So do you allow them to be there, or does the pattern show up where you're like, oh my goodness, well, I can't let them in too much because then my feelings might grow for them, and then they might leave and then I'm going to be hurt. So it's like, I'll just keep myself safe instead. Performing to earn love. This is another one that I did constantly until probably about 10 years ago. I used to pay for everything in relationships. I lived with one of my ex-partners and I paid for everything in the relationship. This was my pattern because I felt like if I paid, they would love me. And then I went into the marriage that I had and I did the exact same thing in that marriage. And then when I went into the next relationship after my marriage, I had shifted that pattern. So we do these things to earn love. We also can buy love, like we're constantly buying gifts for somebody to buy their love. These are all patterns. Keeping ourselves busy instead of facing what arises. It's avoidance. And this is a huge one too, and it happens for a lot of people. So none of these show up because anything is wrong with us. It's more because your nervous system learned different strategies to keep you safe and protect you. And the hard part is the same strategies that once kept us safe are often the very things preventing us from the deep intimacy that we really desire. We don't, a lot of us don't consciously choose unhealthy dynamics. It's the body choosing what feels familiar. So I just want you to reflect for a moment. I'm going to just bring a couple of questions into the space. And I just want you to just even close your eyes for a moment or just take a moment right now to think about this and see what comes through for you. What feels familiar to your nervous system in love? Is it peace or unpredictability? Consistency or emotional intensity? What feels familiar to your nervous system in love? Do you feel safest with people who fully choose you or with people you still have to earn love from? So just notice what your answers were there within yourself. This is also why mother wounds and father wounds can run so deeply in our relationships because our earliest experiences of love, our earliest experiences of safety, emotional connection, protection, affection, validation, they often become the blueprint for what we later tolerate, for what we seek, for what we fear, for what we recreate in our adult relationships. And until we become conscious of that, we can continue repeating those same cycles over and over. So, this work is truly about self awareness. It's not about being perfect in any way. It's also not about getting to a healed place because healing is a lifelong journey and we never fully get there. It's something that we commit to and practice every single day. And, over time things shift, but it's not about getting to a destination, so to say. So, when we understand the nervous system, our trauma responses, and the unconscious patterns running our relationships, we finally begin to embody our personal power, and that then supports us in changing them. So, I'm just going to share a little bit about the nervous system right now, and I'm just going to give like a really small, easy overview for you to understand your own nervous system. So, basically, we all have this beautiful nervous system within us. And when we get triggered in life, which pretty much happens on a daily basis, when we get triggered, we go straight into what we call the survival brain. So we have a survival brain and a learning brain. So we get triggered, we go straight into survival. Now, no matter how much work you've done on yourself, no matter how connected you are to your own body, you will always go to the survival brain first. All of us do. No one gets out of that. It's just what happens with the nervous system. So once we hit the survival brain, we're in a state of fight or flight. And the goal is to understand our bodies and our nervous system so well that we can support ourselves in coming back to the learning brain, because the learning brain is where we are regulated. The survival brain is where we are dysregulated. So the journey back will be different for every person. Basically, like if I'm holding my hands like this and you can imagine like a heartbeat going like from one fist to the other, that's kind of the journey of what it really looks like for the nervous system to go from survival back to a place of homeostasis. Now, depending on what our capacity is within us, and also depending on the event that has occurred, the situation, the event, the trauma that's triggered us, it will be different each time. However, somebody who is actively working on understanding their nervous system may have a bigger capacity. So, say a trauma happens and there's two people watching the trauma as it happens. There's a car accident and two people are watching that happen. Someone dies. Person A, who does work on themselves, has a capacity, and maybe their capacity is quite big, like a bucket. Person B also has a capacity, but they've done no work on themselves and they've not really even have an understanding of their nervous system. Their capacity is like a very short cup. So when this trauma happens in front of these two people, they both go into survival brain instantly. But then the journey back to homeostasis and learning brain will be faster for the person who has the bigger capacity because they can hold more. The person who is with the small capacity, it may take them a long time. So uh, basically, you can get back to a place of homeostasis anywhere from like, it can be like 6 hours. You could get back to a place of homeostasis with a big capacity. It can also take like 4+ days to come back into homeostasis. And even though these two people have different capacities, depending on the trauma, say if somebody you love passed away, you know, suddenly, that's a very big T trauma. And so when that happens, even though you might have a really big capacity, that might still affect you so deeply that it takes you many days to come back to homeostasis. So it depends on the person and their nervous system, but it also depends on the event, the trauma, or the circumstance that happens. So, one of the best ways that we can begin to deeply trust our own bodies and our own nervous systems is by letting our anger take up space. Welcoming the anger teaches us that we don't have to shrink or swallow our feelings to be loved. I don't know about you, but for me, I have found it very hard my entire life to express anger. I even used to say, I'm not an angry person, and that is so false. We all experience anger. It's a feeling, it's an emotion that is energy in motion. It moves through us, and we must give it space. And so, all of these things that I'm about to share, I also want you to think if you have children right now, these are beautiful things to think about with your children because this is what we want to, you know, provide for our children, this safe space for them to let out anger and take up space. We want to teach them that welcoming the anger and allowing ourselves to be fully expressed means that we're still loved in that expression and it's okay. And we want to teach our children that. A lot of my generation have grown up suppressing anger, suppressing sadness, suppressing all the things because we grew up in a time where we were told, oh, good girls don't cry, or oh, boys don't cry, or you think about all these little things that you heard growing up. Good girls are meant to be seen, not heard. Like all of these things that became part of our system and our wiring and our conditioning. And so now, as adults in our generation, and also the generations before us and before us too, we are practicing letting out anger in healthy ways and knowing that even when we let out anger, we're still loved. We're not disowned because we're angry. Letting your tears know they are entirely welcomed, that it's acceptable to express yourself. Again, like I want you to think of children here. Like these are things that as a parent, I am not a perfect parent, but these are things that I put in place because I want my child to like grow with this level of safety in her system. Allowing yourself to be physically comforted. That it's okay to be held by another person when you are having your process. Being kind to yourself and apologizing to yourself regularly. We're so hard on ourselves. We live in a time where it's so easy to like be hard on ourselves. I know especially as a parent, it's so easy to constantly be hard on ourselves about how we parent. Treating your vulnerability as a strength. Like every time you express vulnerably, like reminding yourself that that's actually your strength. It's not a weakness. It's your strength. The fact that you can be vulnerable. And I know personally for me, I just feel like vulnerability is the key. Every time I am with people and they share vulnerably, I like love that person 15 times more. Holding your boundaries with so much warmth for yourself. And I know as we, begin to start setting boundaries in our lives, it's really, really difficult because, like I said at the beginning of this call, some people have known us a certain way our whole lives. So when we begin to share, what is a yes for us, what's a no for us, what is okay, what is not okay, people get uncomfortable with that because the way you used to be was suited them. And now you're changing, and change is uncomfortable and it doesn't feel safe for that person. So they're going to push against that and have resistance. Praising your gentle moments, saying no more than not, like practicing saying no, it rewires your system. Showing our children what rest is. If we can't rest ourselves, doing it so our children see what rest is. Because if our children see us busy constantly all the time, what that does to their brain is like basically tells them like working hard is rent they have to pay to exist. Literally. Allowing yourself to receive and modeling that for your children. Like if you have a hard time receiving any of these things that you have a hard time for, if you find it hard to say, I can't do this for myself, think of your children and do it for your children. Allow yourself to receive and do that for your children. Let them see you receiving. Honor, honor your physical boundary. This is a huge one for women. And it's like, especially in sexual ways, a lot of women find it hard to say no, or that something doesn't feel right for them, or it doesn't feel good, or not, they're a no today, their body doesn't want that today. A lot of women struggle to say that because of the reaction they might get from a man. And so learning to honor your physical boundary is a very huge one, and it's very uncomfortable. Personally, for myself, at the age of 16, I was raped by two men. So I had a lot of trauma around that. And it took me up until about 5 years ago to begin to use my voice in the bedroom and speak to things, even like what I don't like still I'm practicing that. And then practicing repair. Healthy love involves accountability. So we must first be accountable with ourselves. Like these are all things that we do with ourselves, but they also matter with other people. Like how deeply can you repair? And this is uncomfortable because the ego comes into play, and sometimes our ego wants to stand the fight, but repair is the place where you let love in. And so practicing that with yourself, practicing that with people around you, and also again, allowing your children to see this. And, you know, letting your children witness beautiful partnership. So children absorb the relational dynamics in their home every single day. The respect and the care that they see you give and receive becomes their permanent baseline for intimacy. And this was us too. We were that child at one point, and we were the one that created a permanent baseline for what intimacy was. And so some of us grew up with parents who were loving and really had that beautiful connection. And some of us grew up in dynamics where I know my parents were this way. It was so disconnected. They were basically living separate lives. There was like no connection at all. And that then became my baseline for intimacy. I saw my dad come home and try and buy my mum's love with presents, and I saw my mum hate all of the presents that my dad bought her, and she just didn't want to connect with him at all. And so that became then my baseline for love. And so allowing your children to witness what beautiful partnership is so deeply important because that then shows them what their baseline is. One of the best ways to uncover your relationship pattern is to become the observer of your life, to notice how you respond to conflict, intimacy, disappointment, communication, and love itself. It's to notice where you shut down, where you go silent, where you project, where you close your heart, where shame shows up for you, where you abandon yourself just to keep connection. All of these moments are data and information. They are all invitations into deeper awareness with yourself. And if this is where we begin building the emotional body required to hold healthy differently. For me personally, a lot of my patterns began in childhood. I grew up with a father who was emotionally absent. And without realizing it, I became a woman who deeply yearned for love and validation from men. I remember being in a relationship in my 20s with a man who genuinely loved me, yet I couldn't fully receive that from him. I constantly questioned it. I questioned his love for me because he wasn't loving me in the exact ways my wounded parts expected love to look. And when that relationship ended, something like shifted a lot in my life. It actually was where I began to have my spiritual awakening, actually. That relationship ending sent me into my first personal development room where I had like a very beautiful moment that shifted my life forever. And I had realized I had spent so much of my life searching for someone else to fill a void I had not yet learnt to hold within myself. So basically, I needed him to love me in a certain way. He wasn't loving me in that certain way that I needed him to love me. And in hindsight, I see that his role in my life was never to love me in that way, because if he did love me how I needed to be loved, I never would have gone on my journey to learn to love myself. So us ending our relationship was a gift for me because it was the beginning of me finding who I was and beginning to love myself. I also realized I had unconsciously built protection around my heart. I used to tell myself after that relationship, I don't need a man in my life. I'm happy on my own. But deep down, I desired love so much. And that statement that I would say, I didn't even realize how much I said it, but my friends did. And I said it multiple times every day. And then I wondered why I wasn't meeting anyone in my life because I had this such strong story that I don't need a man. I'm happy on my own. And this was my way of protecting myself. It was protecting me from any rejection. It was protecting me from someone coming and then leaving. It was protecting me from not feeling chosen. Then in 2019, I was living in America and I met a man and we fell deeply in love instantly, very fast. We moved super quick. We got married quickly and the relationship became one of the most painful experiences of my life. At the time that this happened, it broke me, like completely broke me. But now, again, in hindsight, I can see that it was also an initiation into becoming a woman, like a woman that was on her way to holding the love I actually deeply desired. Because through that experience, I stopped searching for someone else to complete me. And the love, the safety, the wholeness I had spent years searching for externally, I finally began to feel within myself. And this is why I believe relationships are not just about finding the one, because, like I said, they are our mirrors and they reveal our wounds. They reveal where our protections are. They show us our own nervous system patterns. They show us our capacity to love and be loved. And healthy love requires self-responsibility. It requires us to learn how to lead ourselves powerfully. It requires the ability to stay open during uncomfortable conversations instead of running away or shutting down. It requires us to express our needs instead of silencing them, to use our voices even when they shake, and, to stop abandoning ourselves for connection. Because if we cannot hold ourselves emotionally, if we cannot hold pain, if we cannot hold discomfort, if we cannot hold all of these uncomfortable feelings and emotions, it becomes very difficult to hold healthy love. So I want to ask you a couple of questions again, and then I'm going to take you through a somatic practice. So I just want you again, if you're in a space where you can close your eyes down, or just sit in reflection for a moment. Where in your relationships do you abandon yourself in order to keep connection? Now, this might be in your marriage, it might be with your ex, it might be with your co-parenting baby mama or baby dada, it might be with your partner, your husband, your wife. Where in your relationships do you abandon yourself in order to keep connections? It might be with your friends. What parts of yourself have you silenced just to be loved, just to be chosen, just to be wanted? What parts of yourself have you silenced or hidden to be loved, to be chosen, to be wanted? And if you were no longer relating from survival, what would change about the way you love? If you were no longer relating from survival, what would change about the way you love? So while we're in this space, I'm just going to take you into a somatic practice. And I feel like this is the part that a lot of people miss, because these patterns are not just stories in the mind. They don't just live in the mind. They live inside our bodies. And we are a society right now that's become so disconnected from our own bodies. We have been taught to distrust our bodies, when our bodies hold all of the wounds and all of the answers. Like, our bodies are so wise and powerful, and all we have to do is tune in and we get the answers to everything. But we've been taught to numb ourselves when pain arrives. The moment pain shows up in our life, we have been taught to numb. Take Panadol, take Nurofen to numb any pain in the body. Alcohol, drugs, coffee, all these things that we use to numb pain, numb discomfort, numb the things that don't feel good for us. But pain, I always say, is the very portal to our becoming, and the only way out is through. So we either numb and shove down and suppress pain, discomfort whenever it arises, and it turns into disease in our body, cancer. I pray not for anyone, but this is what happens. Or we become so connected to our bodies that we allow energy to move through us, and we become our own healer. The body is the guide. And if all you take away from this masterclass is to begin trusting your body and its signals, and to notice when pain shows up in your body, and instead of numbing next time, you give yourself space to feel, I'd be so happy that that's what you walk away with. So let's go into a little, just a somatic practice. I want you to um, just get yourself in a little spot that you feel safe. It might be just where you are right now, whether you're sitting or standing. And the reason we go into a somatic practice is because healing relationships patterns is not just intellectual work up here. These patterns live in the body, in the nervous system, in the heart. So we want to work with those places too. So if it feels safe to you, I want you to gently close down your eyes right now and just taking a deep breath in through your nose and exhaling slowly out through your mouth. And again, breathing in through your nose and letting go, exhaling out through your mouth. And just allowing yourself to arrive here in this space. Nowhere to be, nothing to do for the next couple of minutes. Just allowing yourself to be fully present here in the now. Just noticing your body for a moment. Just noticing anything that's alive in your body. If there's any parts of your body that you're experiencing discomfort, where you're breathing from, your chest or your belly. Just taking a moment to notice. And I want you to bring to mind a relationship dynamic or an experience that you've had with someone that has felt painful or emotionally difficult for you. Maybe it's a moment where you felt misunderstood, disconnected. Maybe you were trying so hard in that moment. Maybe you felt abandoned, not chosen, unloved. And as you bring that moment into your awareness, I don't want you to analyze the story at all. I want you to notice your body. When you think of this moment, this difficult emotional moment, what happens inside of you? Do you feel tightness anywhere? Pressure in your chest? A knot in your stomach? An urge to shut down? Maybe you feel like running. You feel like you need to protect. Maybe you feel like disconnecting completely. Just notice what your body does when love feels unsafe. Notice your armor. Notice the places within you that learnt they had to protect themselves. And instead of judging those parts, can you simply just witness them right now? Allow them to be seen. No judgment. Because there's nothing wrong with these parts. They were just created to keep you safe. Maybe your nervous system learned that love was inconsistent. Maybe it learned that vulnerability was dangerous. Maybe it learned that expressing needs leads to disconnect or rejection. And so, of course, protection was built. Now, gently bring one hand to your heart. And just breathe here. Take a breath. See if you can soften in your body, even slightly. Maybe dropping your shoulders, relaxing your jaw. Not forcing yourself open. Not bypassing your pain like you have in the past. Just creating a small moment of safety within yourself right now, in this moment. And maybe silently asking yourself, what am I truly protecting myself from? What does this part of me need? What would love feel like if I no longer had to survive it? And just taking one more deep breath in. And slowly exhaling. And when you're ready, gently opening your eyes and coming back into this space. So, what you just felt then in your body, that's the work. One of the biggest misconceptions in healing and relationships is believing that awareness alone creates change, but awareness is only the beginning. It's the starting point. Because so many people already know their patterns. They know they shut down, they know they chase, they know they people please, they know they abandon themselves, they know they are attracted to unavailable people, they know they disconnect, they know they run away or avoid, and yet still they repeat the cycle. Why? Because patterns aren't just happening in the mind, they are happening in the nervous system, in the body. You cannot think your way out of survival patterns your body still believes are keeping you safe. This is why a lot of people can have all the self-awareness in the world and still struggle to hold healthy love. Because real change requires more than the intellectual understanding of it. It requires learning how to stay present when intimacy feels uncomfortable. It requires learning how to regulate the nervous system during conflict. It requires communication instead of shutting down. It requires expressing our needs instead of suppressing them. It requires staying connected to ourselves when we're in relationship. It requires taking responsibility for our triggers instead of projecting them onto others. This is emotional intelligence. I often say emotional intelligence is having intelligence when you're emotional. And this is what I do. This is the work I do. It's emotional intelligence. It's the work of self-leadership. So I want you just to, again, sit with these questions that I'm about to ask you. What if your patterns are not who you are, but simply what your nervous system learned? And what becomes possible when the body finally feels safe enough to experience love differently? What becomes possible when the body finally feels safe enough to experience love differently? This is also why support matters so deeply in our lives, because we were never meant to heal entirely alone. There's a reason we're put on this planet with other humans. Sometimes we cannot see our own blind spots while we're inside of our own patterns. Sometimes the nervous system needs safe co-regulation before it learns safety internally. Sometimes we need someone to lovingly reflect back the places we are still abandoning ourselves, or the places we protect ourselves, or the old stories we keep repeating. Sometimes we can't even see that we're doing that. Healing relationships patterns is about becoming conscious. It's about creating enough safety within yourself that you no longer relate from survival, that you no longer relate from fear or unconscious protection. And over time, this changes everything. It's the compounding effect. It's like when you compound in a beautiful way, you solidify that change. When you compound in a negative way, you solidify that too. So when we compound in a beautiful way, in this way that we're speaking of today, it's the way you communicate, the way you choose partners, the way you handle conflict, the way you hold pain, the way you receive love, the way you hold yourself in relationship. And this is the work I am so deeply passionate about. It's supporting people in understanding their patterns, healing the nervous system, building the emotional safety within themselves, and learning how to create healthy, conscious relationship from a completely different space. Because I believe that healthy love isn't something that we simply find. I believe it's something that we learn to hold. We become a person who can hold it. And when we become that, I feel it arrives for us. So before we close today, I want to speak to those of you who know this work goes much deeper for you. Because the conversation today is powerful, but transformation happens when we begin applying this work to your specific patterns, your specific wounds and protections, and your specific relationship dynamics in a really private and personalized space. This work is for the people who are tired of repeating the same painful cycles in love, the people who keep attracting emotionally unavailable partners, the people who constantly feel exhausted from over-functioning, over-giving, and holding everything together. Those of you who deeply desire healthy love but struggle with emotional safety, maybe you struggle with vulnerability or self-abandonment. It's for the people who know they are ready to stop relating from survival and begin creating relationships from internal safety, truth, and emotional intelligence, emotional maturity. So my approach to this work is not just mindset or surface level advice. We work with the body, we work with the nervous system, we work with the unconscious patterns, the emotional wounds beneath the behaviors. We look at the places you shut down, you protect, you chase, you people please, where you like overgive, where you struggle to receive. It's basically everything. It's where you abandon yourself in love, and we begin creating safety and awareness and transformation from the inside out. So this work requires honesty. It requires self-responsibility. It requires a lot of compassion for yourself and a deep willingness to truly meet yourself. When someone is willing to do this work, honestly, like I've been saying this whole time, so much begins to shift. The way you relate, the way you communicate, the way you choose people in your life, partners, friends, what you are a yes to, what you're a no to, the way you hold yourself powerfully, the way you can actually be with discomfort. And then love stops feeling like something you are desperately searching for or that feels really far away. And it starts becoming something your nervous system can actually hold and create. So if you feel yourself being deeply activated by this work today, if you know your patterns are asking to be seen, witnessed, transformed, I would love to support you. I will be placing a link to book a one-off call with me in the group. This is a one-off call. It's a 75-minute private call where I will support you in becoming who you need to be to hold yourself differently in life, in love, in business, in whatever it is for you. And so after this call, I will put the link in the group for you guys to click the link. If you go onto that link, you will have all the information you need on that link to then go ahead and book your call. This is a one-off call. From that one call that we have together, if I feel like we are an energetic match for each other, then there will be an offering for you to go into a 3-month container with me one-on-one. So without further ado, thank you so much for being here with me today. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presence. And I look forward to connecting with you all in the group.